Sometimes the headlines scream of betrayal. Sometimes the story feels like a storm that no bridge can survive. One person has destroyed everything, they say. But in moments like these, when leaders clash, trust breaks, and truth feels like fire, we are given a choice. We can drown in the chaos, or we can rise above it, holding on to the deeper truth. Relationships, whether between nations or people, are not built on one person's actions alone. One moment can feel like it changes everything. A headline flashes across the world, a statement is made, a decision is taken, and suddenly the conversation is no longer about years of cooperation or decades of shared goals. It is about the one incident that shook the room. That is how the mind works when emotions are high. It zooms in on the single frame, forgetting the film that came before it and the one that will follow. When we hear that one Indian has destroyed the relationship between the United States and India, the immediate reaction is to let that single act become the entire story. But perspective is the art of stepping back, of refusing to be trapped in that one frame, of seeing the bigger picture even when the moment begs us to narrow our view. In life and in geopolitics, there are events that feel seismic. A bridge built over years can be shaken by a sudden tremor, and the noise of that collapse can drown out the quiet truth that the river beneath it has flowed for centuries. The relationship between two nations, especially ones as vast and diverse as the US and India, is not a thread that can be snapped by one pair of hands. It is a tapestry woven through trade, culture, migration, education, defense, shared dreams, and even shared disagreements. That tapestry has survived changes in leadership, wars, economic crises, and ideological differences. It has survived moments when trust was tested, when rhetoric ran high, and when public opinion swayed like a pendulum. To believe it can be undone in one moment is to forget the depth of its roots. Perspective demands that we remember not just the current chapter, but the whole book. Yes, this chapter may be messy. It may be filled with words like betrayal and shock and truth revealed. It may make us question the characters we once trusted. But the story did not begin here, and it will not end here unless we allow it to. This is the danger of living inside the moment too tightly. It can trick us into thinking the moment is everything. It can magnify pain until it blots out the progress that came before it. It can make us believe destruction is final when, in reality, destruction is often just the clearing of ground for something new to rise. When we zoom out, we see that what feels like an ending is often only a turning point. Perspective is the discipline of refusing to reduce the vast complexity of a relationship to the actions of a single person. It is the strength to acknowledge the damage without losing sight of the whole. It is knowing that nations are like oceans. They are shaped by countless waves, not just one storm. This moment may be turbulent, but the currents run deeper than the surface winds. They carry history, culture, and people-to-people connections that no single event can erase. It is in this wider view that hope is found, not the shallow hope that pretends nothing is wrong, but the deeper hope that understands that what is wrong today can be made right tomorrow. Perspective is not about denial, it is about balance. It is holding the pain of the present in one hand and the promise of the past and future in the other, refusing to let go of either. It is the courage to look beyond the noise, beyond the headlines, beyond the heat of the moment, and to see the enduring ties that lie just beneath the surface. Truth is a strand and powerful force. When it arrives, it rarely knocks politely. It bursts in, uninvited, tearing the curtains off the windows and letting the full glare of reality flood the room. For some, that light is liberating. For others, it is blinding, even painful. In moments of political upheaval or diplomatic scandal, the truth often comes wrapped in a mixture of shock and discomfort. When a leader, a whistleblower, or even a rival steps forward to reveal the hidden details, the immediate effect is like a stone dropped into still water, ripples spread outward, touching everyone in their path. But truth is not inherently good or bad. It is neutral until human hands shape its use. A fact can illuminate or it can destroy, depending on the intent and the way it is wielded. When revelations surface about something as delicate as the relationship between two nations, they carry more than information. They carry weight, consequence, and emotion. The way that truth is told can unite or divide, heal or harm. It can become a bridge if delivered with wisdom and the intention to fix what is broken, or it can become a hammer if delivered with anger, vengeance, or carelessness. Many people believe that the truth will set you free, but what they forget is that it can also leave scars if not handled with care. Freedom and destruction can both be consequences of the same fact, depending on how it is framed, who hears it, and what they choose to do with it. In the case of a political figure revealing something about the actions of one person and the alleged damage to U.S.-India relations, the truth is layered. There is the literal truth, the details, the timeline, the evidence, and then there is the emotional truth, the interpretation that people take away. Both matter. A cold fact in a document might not ignite much by itself, but once it's spoken in front of cameras or repeated in news headlines, it gains energy. That energy can fuel outrage or understanding. It can push people toward cooperation or toward division. Science. This is the double edge. Truth is powerful precisely because it is believed to be unshakable, but it is dangerous because it can be used as a weapon without needing to be forged into one. It's tempting in moments like these to see truth as the final word, the ultimate ending to any debate. But in reality, it's often just the beginning of a more complicated chapter. The moment something hidden is brought to light, the real challenge begins: how to respond to it. Some will call for punishment, others for reconciliation, others for a complete severing of ties. The same truth can inspire vastly different reactions depending on the values and fears of those who hear it. In international relations, that reaction matters more than the revelation itself. A truth dropped carelessly into the public sphere can escalate tensions, while the same truth, framed carefully, can open the door to negotiation and repair. And so, the responsibility is twofold, on the one who reveals the truth and on the ones who receive it. It is easy to throw a match into dry grass and walk away. It is harder to light a fire in a controlled hearth that warms instead of burns. Leaders, diplomats, and citizens alike have to decide whether they will be fire starters or fire keepers. Truth is the spark. Intention determines whether it lights the way forward or consumes everything in its path. Resilience is not something that announces itself in calm and quiet times. It is forged in the furnace of difficulty, in the long nights when the path ahead looks uncertain and the noise of doubt is louder than the voice of hope. For nations, resilience works much the same way it does for individuals. It becomes visible only when something threatens to break the bond that has been built over years. When U.S.-India relations are said to be on the verge of collapse because of the actions of one individual, it can feel as though a single blow has the power to shatter the entire structure. But resilience is the hidden steel inside that structure, the thing that does not bend or give way when pressure comes. It is not an accident. It is the result of years of shared struggles, mutual benefits, and tested trust. A relationship between two countries is far more than an agreement signed on paper or polite exchanges between leaders. It is a web of human connections, students studying abroad, businesses working across oceans, scientists collaborating on research, soldiers standing side by side in joint missions. Every one of these connections is a thread of resilience. They do not vanish because one person acts against the shared interest. They do not dissolve because a scandal makes headlines. These bonds have a way of holding even when political winds change direction, even when anger flares in public speeches, even when the pressure to walk away is high. Resilience is the quiet defiance that says, this will not be the end. It is the ability to see beyond the moment of damage and to remember the long road that led to the present. It is knowing that difficulties are not signs to abandon the journey, but invitations to prove that the journey matters enough to continue. When two nations share trade routes, defense partnerships, cultural ties, and the trust of millions of people, they possess a foundation that is not so easily torn apart. This is not to deny the impact of betrayal or the seriousness of a breach. It is to recognize that resilience is not the absence of damage, but the capacity to repair it. History is full of examples where resilience turned potential endings into turning points. Nations have faced assassinations, wars, economic meltdowns, and deep diplomatic insults, yet found ways to come back together. This is because resilience is not an emotional reaction. It is a strategic choice. It is the decision to focus on what can be preserved rather than on what has been lost. It requires patience because rebuilding trust takes time and discipline, because reacting to every provocation can lead to deeper divides. In the context of U.S.-India relations, resilience means remembering that the alliance is bigger than any single moment, any single person, or any single conflict. There will always be those who believe that once a crack appears, the entire structure is doomed to collapse. But resilience does not work like that. It acknowledges the crack, studies it, and begins the work of reinforcing the structure so it will not fail again in the same way. It does not deny pain or anger. It channels them into action. It does not ignore betrayal. It uses the experience as a lesson in vigilance. And because resilience is built on shared history, it has the strength to carry relationships through storms that seem impossible to survive at first glance. Every moment of chaos hides a message, though it rarely reveals itself right away. When something goes wrong on a grand scale, when trust between nations is shaken, when leaders trade accusations, when the media swirls with speculation, our first instinct is to focus on blame. Who did this? Why did it happen? What punishment will follow? But if we only stop there, we miss the deeper value of the moment. Hidden beneath the noise and the outrage is a lesson, a signal about what was overlooked, what was underestimated, and what must be guarded more closely in the future. Chaos is not just a sign that something is broken, it is also a map showing where the weaknesses lie. In the case of a rupture between the United States and India caused by the actions of a single person, the lesson may not be obvious in the beginning. It may take time for the facts to settle and for emotion to cool enough to see clearly. But when clarity comes, it can reveal patterns. Perhaps there was a gap in communication. Perhaps there was too much reliance on trust without verification. Perhaps there were warning signs that went ignored. Every breakdown, whether in personal relationships or between nations, carries the same truth. Things do not fall apart without reason. There is always a chain of events, small decisions, and overlooked signals that lead to the breaking point. The challenge is that lessons are often uncomfortable. They may show us that we were too confident, that we failed to prepare for betrayal, that we assumed loyalty would be enough to protect the bond. Accepting these truths requires humility, because it means acknowledging that even strong relationships have vulnerabilities. Nations, like people, must be willing to face those vulnerabilities without letting pride or anger block the way. Only then can the chaos become useful instead of destructive. There is also the reality that lessons are rarely convenient. They do not arrive when there is plenty of time to address them. They come in the middle of a crisis, demanding attention when resources are already stretched and tempers are already high. This is why so many people waste the opportunity hidden in chaos. They are too consumed by the urgency of the problem to notice the seed of wisdom it contains. But history shows that the leaders and nations who grow stronger after conflict are the ones who can look at the mess and ask, what is this trying to teach us? Rather than who can we punish so it feels like justice. The lesson in a diplomatic crisis may be strategic, such as the need for better intelligence sharing or stronger safeguards against manipulation. It may be cultural, such as understanding the value of more direct communication between allies. Or it may be about perception, realizing that public trust can be as important to a relationship as any official agreement. In every case, the point is the same. The chaos is not just an obstacle to overcome. It is a teacher pointing out what was previously hidden. Sometimes the most important lessons from chaos are about what must not be lost. In moments when trust is fractured, it is easy to forget why the relationship mattered in the first place. The noise of accusation and defense can drown out the quiet truth that the foundation was built for reasons far bigger than the crisis at hand. Remembering those reasons is part of the lesson too. It keeps the path open for repair instead of destruction, for rebuilding instead of walking away entirely. Every moment of crisis arrives with a question that hangs in the air long after the first wave of shock has passed. What now? When a relationship between two powerful nations is rattled by the actions of one person, the temptation is to see the story as over, to accept that the damage is permanent, and to let the final chapter be written in anger. But the truth is that the next chapter has not been written yet, and the choice of how it will read belongs not only to leaders in power, but to every person who carries a stake in that relationship. History is filled with moments where the choice was made to rise instead of retreat, to build instead of bury, and those moments change the trajectory of entire generations. Choosing to rise is not a denial of the hurt or betrayal that has taken place. It is an acknowledgement of it, paired with a refusal to be defined by it. Nations, like individuals, are shaped not just by what happens to them, but by what they decide to do afterward. Rising means deciding that the relationship is worth more than the damage inflicted upon it. It means seeing beyond the present, wound to the long-term value of cooperation, shared security, economic growth, cultural exchange, and the influence that comes from partnership. It is the recognition that one person's actions, no matter how destructive, cannot outweigh the investments of millions over decades. The choice to rise requires vision, because in the middle of a storm, it is easy to focus only on the clouds. Vision allows leaders and citizens alike to imagine what the relationship can become after the repair, not just to dwell on how it looks in the aftermath of the blow. This is not naive optimism. It is strategic foresight. A partnership between two nations is a force that extends far beyond the political headlines of the moment. It shapes trade agreements that put food on tables, education opportunities that change families for generations, and diplomatic alliances that determine peace or conflict in entire regions. Letting that go because of one betrayal is like abandoning a house because of a single broken window. There is also a responsibility in the choice to rise. It is not enough to hope that things will simply get better with time. Rising is active. It is made up of deliberate actions, listening more than speaking, creating opportunities for dialogue instead of letting silence grow, repairing trust with transparency, and reinforcing the structures that protect the relationship from future damage. This responsibility is shared not just between governments, but between the people of each country. Every act of cooperation, every business deal honored, every cultural exchange upheld is a statement that the bridge still stands. The choice to rise also demands courage, because there will always be voices calling for a complete break. Walking away can feel cleaner, easier, and more satisfying in the short term. Staying and rebuilding requires facing criticism, enduring doubt, and working through discomfort. But it is in this discomfort that the real strength of a relationship is tested. Anyone can maintain ties when the waters are calm. It is only in rough seas that true partnership proves its worth. Rising means embracing that test and answering it with action instead of retreat. In the end, the choice to rise is a statement about identity. It says that the bond between two nations is not fragile, that it cannot be erased by a single act of wrongdoing, that it is defined not by moments of weakness, but by the resolve to overcome them. It says that while one person may have shaken the connection, millions can steady it again through determination, wisdom, and the belief that the story is far from over,